Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Our spokesperson on transport is not with us today. So I claim my time as Energy Minister and his time as transport shadow spokesperson. I want to, firstly, Madam Speaker, pay credit to workers of this country. The workers of Petrojam, the workers of JPSCO, the workers of Flow, Digicel, all of them. The truckers, all the people in public transportation, for the tremendous work that they have done to alleviate the tremendous difficulty that this country has been burdened with through the passage of Hurricane Melissa. The major portion of my response is in relation to energy, but the minister did make some other remarks in relation to restoration of the rural school bus service. And Minister, you have mentioned that it was only Westmoreland and Southern St. James that were not restored, but I gather that Hanover, the member from Western Hanover, has already mentioned that she's calling upon the government to see to the restoration of our rural bus service. You have also mentioned, in relation to telecommunications, the problem with those free Wi-Fi locations under the Universal Service Fund. I just want to say, Minister, long before Hurricane Melissa, we have seen in so many of these locations, the sites were just not working. No telecommunications services provided to the site. So I am requesting that as you attempt now to restore these sites that fell due to the hurricane, there needs to be a broader look at maintenance in relation to all the hundreds of locations that are not working in areas unaffected by the hurricane. There has to be a maintenance provision for Universal Service Fund. And as the person who started that body, I really am urging that the funding be put in place for full maintenance so that our communities can really maximize their benefits. You had mentioned before you got into JPS that Petrojam is due for maintenance, which means that it will be shut down for a while. You didn't say when it will be closed and for how long. And that facility is a most important facility. Now, as was highlighted, you've also mentioned that there was severe damage to the solar plant, Paradise Solar. You've mentioned the restoration of Dr. Bird, JPPC, and West Kingston Power Partners, but you didn't say a word about the regasification facility that was taken offline and presumably now back online, and for which the CEO of JPS had indicated would result in some price increases to the customer because of the use of heavy fuel oil and diesel for generation in that period. So we'd like to hear more on that. But to get to the main issue, and you have dealt with the restoration efforts of the JPSCO, highlighting the large elephant in the room, which was your letter to them advising of the termination of their license come 2027. And Minister, well, you know, the minister, one of the first things I like to ask about is this letter, because I thought I had friends in JPSCO, but not even them will share the letter with me, and perhaps eventually you will share the letter. so that we can fully understand what did the letter say. Minister, 5 minutes gone already?
So, Mr. Speaker, we ask that the members' time be extended for 15 minutes to complete his presentation.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Much obliged, Mr. Speaker, and to my colleagues. Minister, because this is a backdrop, I just want to spend 2 minutes in reminding the country of the position that we have maintained on this side. Because there's no magic to 2027. It was when I was Minister of Telecommunications in 1999, there was no magic to 2038, which was the date for the telecom license to be expired. And that as a minister, fervent on getting justice, fervent on seeing changes, one doesn't have to wait until 2027. Indeed, that JPSO license was amended in 2008 by a JLP government and by me in 2016. And what we have been saying from 2023, don't wait until time runs out to adjust the license. Do it now. In fact, do it when you have leverage. So in my sectoral presentation in 2023, I mentioned certain changes that have been negotiated. In 2024, I repeated that. And in 2025, again, I came here and repeated what are some of the important critical changes that we need to effect before we get to July 2025, which was 2 years before July 2027. And so we waited and wasted time. And to date, a letter was sent to JPSCO. And I really want to see the content of that letter because their interpretation is that the minister threatened them. And as a result of their interpretation, it's all over the place. All over the place. And the minister is also aware that one of the partners is seeking to exit the partnership. So it is very important, especially as we are now providing a loan to the company, a large loan, which we'll get into. The Minister of Finance isn't here, but normally in these matters, you would expect that the Minister of Finance, $150 million is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And so Minister, there are some questions. Firstly, you've mentioned that today the government is not yet aware of the interest rate. You can't lend money without that very important element being known. So let us know what that interest rate is. But more importantly, you did say that at the end of 2 years, if the company has paid back the loan back, there's an opportunity for the government to transfer that loan into equity, into shares, and to acquire the assets. What is the value of that asset? Is the value of the asset done at today's date? So at the time when you're taking the risk, is the value going to be when you've added 150 million, enhance the value? At what point have you done that valuation? That I think is fundamental to this parliament accepting this as a way forward. So that is a most important question. But the minister has mentioned that JPSCO wants $350 million. And presumably, that is the cost for the full restoration that is to happen now in February. But the government is only providing 150. So we are short by $200 million. Where, yes, and it's United States dollars. You know, before all of this, we were being told by JPS and others that the amount of money for full restoration was between 400 and 500. So we are down to 350. They are getting 150 from the government of Jamaica. Where, and I'm so happy the Minister of Finance is back, where is the balance to come from? $200 million. And very importantly, what assurance is there? Especially because restoration is tied to this 150 million. What assurance is there for the balance 200 million? And again, have commitments been given by the government for this balance to be provided? And by the way, probably when the Minister of Finance speaks, we will know exactly where that 150 million is coming from. Council fund,
We want to know now.
borrowed money,
You must know that.
and I think the cat bond. The Minister, I don't see how we can in Parliament today and not be told where that 150 million US is
The
coming from.
cap on money.
But Minister, earlier, yeah. Earlier, Minister, Minister, I want to suggest a few things. I think you. I am making. I am making the submission mindful of the precarious state of our country and the desire to ensure that we are stronger after all of this. That's what I'm saying. And I spoke earlier, Minister, of concession and leverage. We are providing JPSCO with $150 million US. May I suggest that in providing this money, we use it for some leverage? One, JPSCO has a monopoly on transmission and distribution. You know what has happened in this hurricane? There are some persons who lost electricity totally. Totally. No, I need no protection, and I can do that. And just remind the minister, I was not the minister who signed the license in 2001.
Member.
I stand by the license. I stand by the license.
Member,
But
you're on the floor.
yes, thank you, sir.
You have the mic. But if you go into a crosstalk with another member that doesn't, you don't have the floor. Members, you don't have the floor. If you allow me, you will hear. If you allow me, you will hear.
Yes.
I am saying to you, you have the mic. You have the floor. If you're going to a crosstalk with a member who doesn't, then you're on your own. I can't protect you.
As of now.
I'm saying I am saying to you, you have the floor. Continue with your presentation.
So, Mr. Speaker, again for the records, in 2001, when the JPS was divested, I was not the minister. I improved on those terms of the license in 2016, and I'm proud of that. And I'm proud. And as the minister is realizing now, conditions warrant certain action by the government. And in 2001, there was a need for what eventually the administration entered into with that new enterprise. But the concession I'm seeking using the leverage of the 150 million is firstly, and there are a number of concessions I believe the government should insist on. Today, due to a hurricane, if my neighbor has a solar system that's working 2 days after the hurricane, and I am on JPS, damaged and out of power for months, my neighbor can't run a wire across my fence and give me electricity, you know, because that person would be in breach of the license. I'm suggesting, Minister, you get them to waive that requirement so that in periods of emergency, that period in yes. So, Mr. Speaker, we have some leverage now. We're giving them $150 million as loan. Let us get some leverage. Let us get some concession as a result. So I would like to recommend that in relation to emergency situation like we're under, that issue of monopoly and transmission and distribution be waived, and that anybody in Westmoreland or Hanover who can assist a neighbor with electricity now, they should be allowed to do so without the restraint of the license. I'm also suggesting, Mr. Speaker, that as we need to get our economy up and running quickly, and as we are seeing those operators in special economic zone languishing and can't expand because of the high price of electricity, use this opportunity now to get a concession and allow persons who operate in free zones to generate and distribute electricity within the free zones, within the special economic zones.
Bring that forward.
I won't go through the long list. There's one other issue to raise. Because already the JPSCO has given a hint about increased prices. And last year, you and I were at one, about that, when we thought that the slowness in restoration of the LNG generated electricity caused a major problem because people were paying for electricity generated by heavy fuel oil and diesel. And by the way, the Minister of Finance would be aware that the taxation on heavy fuel oil and diesel is so much greater than the taxation on LNG. And that is a matter that has to be resolved. But I believe that there has to be greater accountability on the part of the JPSCO. I can't see why you were able to say in your brief the date and time when LNG was restored. And that is curious because that is important. It's a cheaper generating cost to the JPS, larger because, among other things, the taxation is less. And we have to think for the future because more and more large customers are taking themselves off the grid to go straight to the LNG supplier, paying less taxes than we, those of us who are on the grid, have to pay for fuel sources that are used to generate electricity such as heavy fuel oil and diesel, the taxation on those two fuels quadruple the taxation on LNG. And more you're going to find customers going to be migrating to their own generated electricity. And more those who remain on the grid will be faced with higher and higher prices. So, Mr. Chairman, as I see 1 minute remains, the minister could indicate the critical issues, rate of interest, where the funds are coming from, where the balance will come from, because the Jamaican people do want to have electricity before Christmas. And your timeline of February, which you're sticking your neck to, could very well drift to beyond February. And we don't want that. We want to ensure that the restoration takes place as quickly as possible. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
We have questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, colleague. And I'm going to answer. Eh? Yeah, this is too much, man. If you get another one, I need another page. Firstly, Mr. Speaker, let us separate two things. Let's separate the negotiation that's going to go forward and the questions that were raised, but let's start with where we are now. This is the first opportunity that the Andrew Holness-led administration has had to start from scratch and negotiate a new license, electricity license, on behalf of the people of Jamaica. So don't tell me about 2001 and 2000. This is the first time that this happened. This administration and this minister had given a commitment to the people of Jamaica that we were going to negotiate a new license. We didn't say who the new license would be with. And at this point, what I have stated here today is that I have separated Melissa and the needs that the JPS needs for Melissa in terms of funding to bring forward the timelines. And I can state here now that the contract with the consultants out of the UK were signed yesterday. They arrive here next week. The negotiating team of the government of Jamaica is ready to go to the table with the JPS next week with the hope of coming to some kind of agreement or to have a disagreement so we know exactly which road we are going down. So to ask me about a valuation when a negotiation is just starting and the license is very explicit on what happens if the government takes the position that they are going to buy out the assets of the existing electricity provider. So that is a premature question that I can't answer because I don't reach here yet, because it might not even be necessary. So that's number one. Number two, the meeting that I had yesterday with the chairman of the JPS, the CEO of the JPS, and the CFO of the JPS, in relation to what we agreed, was unanimous as the best way forward to deal with the current situation and make sure that we don't delay it and we go on the same path, which is to try and come with an agreement in the shortest possible time with the negotiation teams at the table. Any attempt to rush a negotiation because you are responding to Melissa would be irresponsible, and it would only delay the process of restoration, because that can't happen in a day, a week, a month, or 2 months, or 6 months. 2 years in itself is a stretch. But my commitment on behalf of this government is that we are going to go to the table and we are going to try, and based on the meeting that we had yesterday, and the fact that they know already the fundamental changes that we want, that we will have a path that will either take us to consensus or we move to the next point, which is options. The government is still in control of this negotiation and the leverage. We are the one who have to issue the license whenever that time comes. So I want to make Jamaica assured that Melissa has not shifted that when, if it was negotiated differently, it could have easily given the government less leverage based on the circumstances. I want to mention about Petrojam. You asked some questions. I'm prepared to get those answers for you and give you as we usually communicate, because that is important information. You mentioned Paradise Solar. You said we didn't mention anything about LNG. You would have seen the statement from JPS about what they are doing for the customers, JPS, in terms of no disconnections, payment plans, etc., etc. The JPS knows exactly from Daryl where this government stands. The OUR is already on top of their game, and we are going to make sure that before anything happens in relation to any discussion about price increase or rate increase, that a proper discussion is had and it is evaluated, and whatever it is has to be communicated and dealt with. If it becomes that way, you are going a bit further because you reach to that point. Where I reach is to make sure what I announced today happens in the shortest possible time to ease the burden and the suffering of those who don't have not even a tarpaulin over their head. So I give you the assurance that that is on my radar. And if that is inevitable, we will manage it and we'll make sure that we do what we have to do to ease the burden on the customers of the PS. You asked about interest rate. We got approval yesterday. The Ministry of Finance, I think at this hour, if not this evening, tomorrow morning, will start discussions with JPS. And as I said before, we have to be very careful, because if we are lending the money and the interest rate is not reasonable, and by the way, it's consolidated fund money, not borrowed money, it's consolidated fund money. But guess what? If you don't spend $150 million to do this, and you spend it on some house, and fix some school, and some water, and you don't have light, the $150 million don't value nothing. Because light, electricity is the most important thing in a recovery as we speak now. So I take full responsibility with support of my minister. As I said before, you were asked about the shortfall. We have given a commitment for $150 million. They are to come back in relation to their financial model for the balance. The original ask was $300 million. We said we are prepared to do 2 months to get the restoration back. We will evaluate it at that point, depending on where we are. But right now, the most important thing is to move that 4 to 6 months and cut it down to 2 to 3 months. If the Jamaican people know and see the activity on the ground, to know that January 2026 is going to be the last of the suffering because of electricity, they can manage that. But if you tell them May, June next year, they're just going to drop their money there. But 6 months is impossible to sustain. So remember, you and I get on. We can discuss anything you want, whether off air, on air, wherever you want. Just understand one thing. My responsibility on behalf of this government and the Andrew Holness-led administration is to reduce the suffering of the people in the shortest possible time. And this is a game changer to what JPS had proposed originally and was going down the road. And the fact that we can do what we have done without mixing the loan with any extension to the license is making sure that our commitment to the Jamaican people is upheld. So, as I said before, we can talk more. Thank you.
Members, I accept that it is time for questions. And I will say this before I give you the floor, that this little booklet here is what governs the actions and activities of Parliament. We are going to be guided by what is in here. And what I want to say to new members, that there are sections that speaks to protocol and disciplinary activities and actions. So what I want us to do is to do it accordingly to what is here. The standing orders speak to section 32, that a member who wishes to ask a question will rise. And if two persons rise at the same time, the first person that I see, I will call upon to take the mic. The first person to stand, you can go ahead and stand. If you all rise, I'll choose one. Member from Eastern Westmoreland, your mic is on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I will be asking questions.
I hope so.
Yes, sir. As long as you're familiar with the same definition that I have for questions. Minister, well, I'm wondering if it's because of that subtle voter remark why when you come to Eastern Westmoreland you don't inform me that you are there. So let us put whatever is not good between us, let's put it aside so we can deal with the people's business. My first question, Minister, in relation to the mobile gas stations, we still have a pressing need in Eastern Westmoreland for us to have access to those services, especially in an area like Betheltown that does not have a functioning gas station to begin with. So I'm, again, just bringing that to your attention that we would like to have mobile gas stations in Eastern Westmoreland. That's one. Two, in relation to the timeline, I'm happy that you have had a subsequent meeting with the CEO for JPS and that you have a timeline for January, because I met with him and a team Saturday. Yes, and he expressed that the videos and the pictures did not justice to the level of devastation. So I'm happy that there's been a further update to the timeline for persons to get electricity. In relation to the generators, I note in your statement that you said, I think it's 561 generators were given to Trelawney, Hanover, and St. Elizabeth. I'm wondering what happened to the parish of Westmoreland, and specifically now in relation to Eastern Westmoreland. All right. Okay, next question is in relation to when we give the percentage from these utility companies, and we say 75% is back and 80%. It's not hard to imagine that you have 75% of whatever services being restored because of the density of Kingston and St. Andrew and St. Catherine, especially Portmore. What I would appreciate more is when we speak to this, if we speak to on a parish by parish basis, because really and truly the impact was really from Manchester, St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland coming around to. Right, because that would give a much clearer picture to us as to what level of restoration has taken place here. And that's Flow, Digicel, JPS, and one of them. In relation to ATMs, which you mentioned, we don't have any ATMs currently in the constituency. And I'm wondering about the possibility of looking at putting some ATMs at the police station. There's an issue in Darliston where some bandits went there, and since then we haven't had any. But there is a functioning police station in the major towns. And so it should be difficult to sit there because I suspect that these bandits would not be bold enough to attempt to rob somebody on the compound of the police station. And as you said, cash is currently king. So if you could look into that, I would appreciate it as well. In relation to the containers that you've said, there's a possibility of retrofitting. I am wondering if it is to get access to the containers that is causing the delay, or it is the process of retrofitting, the access to get, because you said in your statement several times that there are persons who don't have even a tarpaulin. I wrote it down. And sometimes when we speak, people, I see some members get agitated at times when we are speaking. Just imagine you have constituents that don't have even a tarpaulin over their heads, right? To speak up and advocate for that person could not be seen as anything but making representation, which is what they elected you to do in the first place. Right? So, Minister, the mobile gas station, the electricity, the containers, the generators, the breakdown of the restoration of the services and the ATM at the police stations.
Thank you, member. Just to say to you that, yes, those issues that you raise can easily be answered. And I'd appreciate if you just send me something, outline it to me, so that I can forward it to who needs to get the responses. But nothing that you have said is undoable. The only thing is the 1,000 containers that are here and have been here forever are not owned by the government. We're asking, based on the circumstances, if they could make them available to us as a humanitarian gift. But they are owned by several different shipping lines. Just to go back, member, if you indulge me, to my colleague, shadow spokesperson, accelerate operations at Old Harbour LNG and Clarendon resume full operations on October 31st. Accelerate teams in Montego Bay resume full operations on November 1st. So the timelines were very short in relation to the period of thing. 28 was a hurricane, 29, 30, 31st, a matter of a few days. So that's good news in relation to the overall scheme in terms of your concern about possible major increases. So again, that's excellent coordination and work, especially the fact that even one of them was in Montego Bay, that was able to be opened on November 1st. So member, as I said before, the things that you raised there, the information and data, what I can say is that based on the meeting with JPS and the fact that they have gotten the confirmation from the government to the agreement that we had yesterday verbally that's going to be documented, they're going to provide the government of Jamaica with a detailed listing which will take us to Christmas and take us to January. And that will be able to give communities timelines similar to what we did at the end of Beryl, because percentages mean nothing to me. It means nothing. If you don't know where your community is and when you expect it to get back light and you can't plan, then They're just in frustration and anxiety. So we will get that and we will publish that, or the JPS, once we sign off on it, will publish it on a daily basis as they did in the last few weeks of Beryl when we got on top of them to share information. But what is state again, this is not a fix that does not include the worst affected areas. This includes sections of the worst affected areas for Christmas and by end of January, early February.
Member from St. Andrew Southern.
Who's that?
Thank you.
Turn your mic on, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Minister, the context of your presentation in relation to the JPS situation is that the license expires, I think it's July 2027. Notice has been given, triggering the consequences of license termination. Jamaica has roughly 20% of the equity in JPS. Funding gap, based on the more recently done work to do the restoration of the grid, including substations, transmission, posts, etc., distribution lines, is around 350 million US. So our 20%, if you're looking at it as a shareholder, our 20% would be 70 million. But we are actually taking the risk of lending an unsecured loan to JPS of 150 million, which is twice the proportion of the equity that we hold in the business. So unsecured, you have the collateral to seize. You're relying on a mechanism to get it back, which I'm going to speak to in a second. So my question to you is, first of all, the other 200 million, which is currently not funded, but which is necessary to achieve the timelines that you have indicated for restoration. What assurance that 200 million will be raised on a timely basis so as to enable the necessary expenditures to be made by JPS to hit the targets, which are presumably fairly aggressive targets given the extent of the damage to the grid and so on? What level of confidence do you have that 200 million will be raised by them? Sure. And what is the time frame that it has to be raised by for that target to be met? I'd like to know the time frame for that. Secondly, would we be disbursing our 150 before that 200 million is in place? Are we going to take the risk of lending that money to JPS, funded out of the consolidated fund you've said? I was going to ask you how it's going to be funded. So roughly the same amount of cap bond drawn, we're told. This 150, which Jamaica has been seeing as being critical to the housing, shelter, the school fixing up, the health centers and hospitals, etc. JPS is now going to get the benefit of that money. I want to know whether we're going to take that risk and disburse those funds to JPS until the damage fund is fully funded. As it stands now, all you've told us is you've left it up to them and they're to come back to you. That, I think, is a risk we're not prepared to take as a country. I want to know which GOJ entity is going to carry the loan. So is it DBJ? You know, which entity is going to be the lender of record? Because part of what you've said is a mechanism that assures repayment, you've said, is that if at the end of July 2027, there's no renewal of the license because you can't agree terms, and you're acquiring the assets of JPS, you're saying that 150 would be a set-off, essentially. That's what I read you to be saying, that you would recover the 150, it would go in reduction of what you would have to pay them to acquire the assets. So for set-off requires mutuality, meaning that the person who owes you is the same person you owe. So I want to know which entity within the government is going to carry that loan to the JPS. You said the interest rate is not yet settled, and the Ministry of Finance is going to deal with that hopefully tomorrow. I'm hoping that we will get a report on what that is, because this is coming out of the nation's available liquidity, and when there are a whole lot of needs to be met. So I think it's necessary for us to do what is necessary to get JPS up and running as quickly as possible. But I have to do it very prudently and sensibly so that we don't unnecessarily expose taxpayers to loss. So I would like your assurance, Minister, that that 200 million will be coughed up by JPS, perhaps by its two large overseas shareholders, Marubeni and East West Power, Korean government, South Korean government-owned large utility. Or JPS is going to draw down on whatever funding it can raise from its creditors. I don't know how they plan to fund it, but we need to know it's funded before we put our 150 in. That's the last question I have, because I'm asking questions, is in all of this that we're discussing now, to get things back up and running as quickly as possible, which is the main imperative we're all aligned around. We've also had talk over the last year or so since Daryl about building resilience into our distribution and transmission systems for electricity. And there's been talk about putting wiring underground, and that the cost of that is very high. And in fact, the CEO of JPS has said it'd be prohibitive. But what I want to know is what practical steps are being taken to build resilience into the grid now for those sections which have to be rebuilt? And is that a consideration at all? And if it is, what are the things that you intend to do to make sure that the grid is more resilient to withstand weather events, maybe not as drastic as Melissa, but weather events that we know sooner or later, hopefully much later, we're going to have to endure again. So that's my third question. So I'll summarize. One is the timeline for JP fund the 200 million gap, and whether you would ensure that that funding is in place before you expose our $150 million. Which GOJ entity is going to carry the loan, the $150 million loan that will be made to JPS? And what, if anything, is being done to build greater resilience into the grid in those areas where the grid is being substantially rebuilt? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me indicate very clearly for all of Jamaica to hear. The meeting that we had yesterday morning, where the Minister of Finance and the Financial Secretary was there, we ironed out a way forward, realizing the seriousness and the time-sensitive nature of this response. So first answer to your question is that this government is prepared on behalf of the people of Jamaica to release the $150 million in whatever tranches are required as quickly as possible to get the restoration going. And that's the difference between a caring government and somebody who has a financial background. The people want light. Okay? So let me just make that clear.
Point of order, Minister.
Point of order.
Minister, point of order.
His feet, talking. The minister is standing on his feet, talking into the mic. You don't need to personalize your response. You don't need to get hot under the collar. It's a legitimate question I'm asking. And I'm just, so don't bother about having a financial background. I want to know a simple question. Are you going to ensure funding is in place? And now you're coming back and personalizing it in a totally unnecessary way.
Let me repeat. The member is saying that his position is that he would not release the $150 million unless he knew where the $200 million was coming from. That's what he said. That's what he said. That's what he said. Hansard is there. Hansard is there. Hansard is here. Hansard is here. And I am
Minister, Minister,
I am telling you.
Minister, please, please. For those members who do not have the floor, please allow the minister to answer the question.
So,
You may continue, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me just say it again. Based on the meeting that took place yesterday, we are confident, based on the meeting that had the representative of the Ministry of Finance at the highest level, the Minister and the Financial Secretary, you can't go any higher, that we are prepared to release the $150 billion tonight, if it means that the people are going to get back light sooner than later. Mr. Speaker, 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 Mr. Speaker,
Members,
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker.
members, all minister. Members,
You are a wicked and evil. Bad mind don't go on yet from September 3rd.
members,
Wicked and evil. Mr. Speaker.
I am-
Mr. Speaker.
Minister, all. Members, members from the opposition side,
You are an uncaring set.
if you
You are a
do
heartless set.
If
You are
you
wicked,
do
sir.
not allow the minister to continue, then we will have to go to something else. Please. You do not have the floor. Member from St. Catherine North Central, you do not have the floor.
Mr. Speaker.
You will find out in short.
Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead, Minister.
The $150 million that
Give me
the
chance.
government is prepared to release as soon as the documentation is in place, which will be no later than a matter of hours to a day, because of the urgency, is specific for restoration over 2 months, December and January. That $150 billion is ring-fenced to deal with a restoration program that will take care of Jamaica, not only some parishes. And if you are going to tell me that there are people in this house that would question a government in a crisis like this to hold $150 million that we have availability now, to find out about $200 million, which can take another month or 6 weeks. Our money is secured whichever way it goes. We are a responsible government, and we have taken responsible decision, a clear decision, an argument done. So you asking the question, I wouldn't bother start with them here. So, Mr. Speaker, the position is, this matter is fluid. This is a cabinet decision that was taken yesterday. We are going to wait until we have the final agreement between the Ministry of Finance and the JPS. And whenever that happens, we will make it public in Parliament to show the people of Jamaica what the final terms and conditions are. But for somebody to stand up in Parliament, knowing what is taking place out there, and is prepared to take a position to delay restoration, they will be judged by the people of this country.
Minister, 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 I want you to remain focused and answer the questions that are posed to you, please. Member from St. Andrews South Eastern, you have the floor.
Minister, the JPS has said that they estimate that the damage is 350 million. You are providing 150 million. Are you comfortable that the 150 million that the government is going to loan can provide the full restoration for all the parishes in the time frame that you have indicated? Right? By end of, hold on. Right? My second question, and I will ask you to ask your colleague who is sitting beside you. When will the Parliament get a statement from the Minister of Finance which outlines all the monies that we have gotten from the insurances, the monies that we are negotiating with our multilateral agencies, World Bank, IDB. We know that we have an estimate of US $8 billion. It is anticipated we can probably raise 1 billion US. Where is that shortfall going to come from? What are those funds going to be used for? We are 4 weeks after the hurricane, and the Minister of Finance is yet to come to the Parliament and tell us how much money we have, how the funds are going to be used. And every other minister can speak, can say many things, but if the Ministry of Finance cannot speak, right? So my question, Minister, do you believe 150 can cover the full restoration in the term?
Question at a time.
Just make him answer. Make him answer.
One question.
Turn it on.
Yes.
Minister, Minister, I'm going to ask you, are you willing to have all questions posed at once and then you answer, or are you going to take them one at a time? No, you have to tell me no, because I'm going to rule. One at a time. Are you going to answer the member from St. Andrew Eastern, sorry?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I only have to answer one question out of two, and that's a question that relates to the JPS negotiation. And he asked me if I'm confident that the 150 can do what it is said to do in the 2 months, and the answer is yes. Secondly, he asked about whether or not I'm confident of the additional money, and I will make a statement here to say we will work with JPS in whichever way, shape, or form that is required, if it means that we are to benefit the people of Jamaica in the shortest possible time. All options are open for discussion. All options. But we are not going to wait to get a fulsome, complete in a time of crisis. 150 is what we need for 2 months to get January morning, February morning, restoration as against May, June. If anybody can question that in Jamaica today with what we are going through, then they are wicked people.
Member from Clarendon Southwestern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is the minister aware that one of the major partners of the current JPS setup has indicated that they want to withdraw from the JPS agreement, the current agreement that they have, right? One of the international partners. And having regard to that fact, is the minister still prepared to go ahead with this loan of 150 million US, having regard to the fact that one of the partners of JPS has indicated that they want to withdraw from the agreement? It's an important question.
Thank you. Oh. Oi. Mr. Speaker, it is a matter, Babsy. Mr. Speaker, it is a matter of public international knowledge that Maribweni, who owns 40%, indicated months ago that they are 40%.
Obviously, they are not listening, Minister. Give them some time. Go ahead now.
It's a matter of public record, international record, that Maribweni took a decision to divest their 40% in JPS. They came and saw the government of Jamaica and expressed that. Yes, also, when the letter of the government in terms of the position that we took with the license, they came back to us to indicate that based on that, nobody would be prepared to buy 40% of a company that have 2 years on a license. So we are on the same path in relation to going down the road to get a negotiated license, one way or the other, so that they can then do what they need to do. But as of right now, they are in it for the next 2 years because they don't have any ability to sell. So that has no inference or nothing to do with what we are planning to do now. So answer to his question, yes, long time.
Can we? House leader. House leader.
Minister Great. Mr. Speaker, we have another statement by Mr. Speaker, we have a statement by the Minister